Basically our agenda for today, we're going to go through a few things. So we're going to start off by doing a fun little look at a few different websites to see whether they're mobile friendly or not and understand what we're really talking about in this whole presentation. We are going to talk about why mobile is such a big trend and why it impacts you as a nonprofit. We're going to look at different approaches to mobile websites, so that's really the meat of where we're going to see, what does this actually mean for you in terms of logistics, in terms of cost and complications and stuff like that. And then at the end, we'll look at a few different ways of designing for mobile. If you have any questions, feel free to enter them in chat throughout the presentation. If it's something that's really relevant to the moment, Lori will jump in and bring that to me and we'll get it answered right away. And if not, we will also take some questions at the end. So, to get started, I always like to just clarify, what does it mean when we're talking about mobile? So, to me, mostly what we're going to be focusing on in this presentation today is smartphones and tablet computers. So you see some examples in front of you. That includes iPhones, Blackberries, iPads, Android phones, Android tablets, Windows mobile phones. There's a whole range. Also in the cell phone and mobile space, we have what are called feature phones. So that's your phone that doesn't necessarily, like maybe it just has the texting capability and phoning, sort of your traditional mobile phone, which some of you may have. As I said, those are called feature phones. They're going to be less of a focus in what we're talking about today because they're not really very good for surfing the internet. It's possible, but painful, and there's not a lot we can do as website designers to make it too much better. So we're going to be focusing less on that today and more on how we can optimize our website for smartphones and tablet devices, which are very commonly used to access the internet. So who here on the webinar today is actually the owner of a smartphone or a tablet device and uses that to access the internet? Can you raise your hand if you have a tablet or a smartphone yourself? So let's just get a feel for who we've got in the audience. So, and if you're not sure, that raise your hand function is on that right side of the screen with your little control panel. Okay, so we're getting some hands going up. I'm seeing maybe about half of people's hands are up. Oh, some more. Okay, I'm going to say that's about 50% of you. So the reason I ask is because I think if you do have a smartphone or a tablet, it may hit home to you a lot more why this is really relevant, because you will have experienced the pain of trying to be on your phone or tablet and navigate to a website and have it not be mobile friendly. If you don't have one, that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you may want to chat with some of your friends that do and get a feel for what it's like, what that navigation experience is like. Try it out for yourself so you can understand what the big motivation is for moving to mobile. So I also just wanted to frame this discussion a little bit to say that there's a lot of different ways as a nonprofit to approach your mobile strategy and to connect with your supporters in a mobile way. And these are some different elements that you could have in a mobile strategy, certainly not a comprehensive list. But some ways, so we're going to be talking today about the mobile web and how you can optimize your website for mobile devices. But as you see, that's just one aspect. Another similar but also different way of approaching mobile is to develop a mobile app. So you can see that over there on the right. That's an example of a weather app. Basically, an app is a little program that runs on your smartphone or tablet. Usually there's a little icon that allows you to launch that app, and it's something you download from some sort of app store. And sometimes they're paid and sometimes they're free. Now, an app, we're not going to be talking about too much about apps today, but it is a separate discussion of whether you want an app versus a website, and they have different roles and they're good at different things. Basically, what I'm going to say for the purposes of today is if you're just getting into exploring the mobile space, I think that a website is a much better way to start. Developing an app tends to be quite expensive and time-consuming process, and there's definitely some progress being made in the mobile app sphere for nonprofits. But if you're just getting started, let's focus on the mobile web for now. And if people do have questions about mobile apps, maybe we can explore that in the Q&A if we have time. Some other ways to connect with supporters on mobile would be a text campaign, so sending text messages to your supporters rather than, say, email, or maybe as well as. You could mobile optimize your email. This is a really good way if you are, again, if you're looking for quick ways to connect with your supporters in a mobile way, this is a really good one because a lot of people check their email on their mobile devices. So having an email that looks good on a mobile means that supporters are much more likely to respond then and there rather than maybe waiting until they get home to read your email and then maybe they forget to do it and just delete it, or it goes too far down in their inbox. And there's also the option to run a text to donate campaign. We have a great blog post about this on your website if you are interested in learning more about that. So we're going to start off with a few examples of different websites and look at whether or not they are mobile friendly, so we can get a feel for what we're talking about here. So the first one we're going to look at is the website. This is an organization that I originally developed this talk with, the Canadian Council of Christian Charities. So you're going to see them popping up a few times throughout this session. So if we look at their, I'm going to show you now what their main website looks like. So this is what it looks like. Very, very nice website, nice big picture here in the middle. They've got a navigation bar at the top. They've got all their links down here, and then lots more links at the bottom. So this is what their site looks like on a desktop device, and in my case, on a fairly large monitor. So now if we go back and look at over here on the right, you can see a screenshot of what their website looks on when I go to it on my iPhone. Basically what you'll notice is it's exactly the same, just smaller. So actually in that little picture over there on the left, that was the desktop one if you want to compare. So basically what they've done is they haven't, in other words, they haven't done anything. Their website has no optimization for mobile, so what their mobile device is doing is basically just shrinking it down to fit the screen size of the mobile device. Now that might not seem so bad when it's blown up for you on a computer screen, but when it's actually the size of your mobile, this website is pretty small and hard to navigate. So those links are pretty tiny. You'd probably have to use a pinch and zoom method to expand this website to be able to click on the links. So the conclusion is they have no mobile site. So let's look at another example. So this organization, the 4Cs, has also developed another website called giveconfidently.ca, and we're going to again look at their public site on the desktop. So this is what it looks like. We've got the navigation bar at the top. We have this big box in the middle with their key text and a nice picture, and we have these three boxes at the bottom. Now, if we look at what that looks like on a mobile device, we see their big logo up here, but we see that their navigation bar is actually rearranged to better fit on the mobile device, and then we see that the text is up at the top and the picture has been moved farther down. So in other words, we see a lot of the same elements and it looks very similar, but it's been rearranged so that the text is nice and big on a mobile device. So what's going on here is this is called responsive design, and basically how it works is that you rearrange the elements on your site to accommodate the size of the device that you're on. So I'm actually just going to show you quickly what I mean by that with a little demo. So we're here back on their main desktop site in my browser, and what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to resize my desktop site. So I'll try to do this slowly to make sure the webinar doesn't lag too much. So here we go. We've got the site again, big desktop view, and as I shrink my browser window, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then at some point right here, there was just a little shift. Things just got a little bit smaller, so it'll get bigger again and smaller, and then if I keep shrinking, we get to a point where things rearrange again, and all of a sudden we've got this this extra view which can just grow and shrink basically to accommodate the size of the device or the browser basically that I'm on. So this is what makes a site responsive. It's one website, but as I change the size, it's changing the layout to accommodate basically the size that I'm looking at. So we're going to get more into this later and what's involved, but I just want to quickly introduce you to the concept of responsive design. Now the third example we're going to look at is nature.org. So again, let's go back to their desktop site and see what it looks like. So you see they've got their logo at the top, they have this nice navigation bar here with some great calls to action on the right. They have this big rotating banner here with some big, really compelling pictures, and on the left they again have some more buttons and calls to action here. So they've got a lot going on this website. They're using their space really well and fitting things in. Now if we go back and look at what their mobile site looks like, which is again pictured here on the right of my slide, we see that they've got their logo, but then it looks completely different. That navigation bar that we saw before is basically been reduced to 2 links, about us and how you can help. The rest of it's just not there. Those big pictures that we saw, they aren't here anymore. Instead, we've got a couple of things highlighted, such as today's daily nature photo, and then some quick ways to visit our preserves and things like that. So instead of seeing the same site, we're actually seeing a completely different site that's been carefully thought out as to what is most important to a mobile user and what can we put on that mobile version of the site so that the mobile user can just have the easiest, simplest experience and not be overwhelmed by all the complicated elements on the desktop site. So basically what's going on here is that they have built a mobile site at nature.org. So again, we're going to come back to all of these, but I just wanted to introduce them at the beginning. So what about your site? I will be honest, our site currently doesn't have a mobile version, so it's okay. It doesn't mean that you always have to have one, but it's good to think about where you are, to think about who your constituents are, and you know what your goals are, and how will a mobile website help you achieve them. So that's what we're going to chat about now. Why mobile? So I think it's important to start off with a few stats. You know, there's a lot of different priorities that we can have as an organization, and really should a mobile optimized website be one of them? So looking at the use of mobile internet, basically this is one of the best stats I could find on stats in Canada. There's lots on mobile use in the US. But in Canada, basically we can see that while overall internet access has stayed fairly similar over the last 10 years, although it's gone up a bit, that's that teal line second from the top. The mobile use of mobile internet and access to mobile internet, which is that orange line at the bottom, has risen very rapidly from 5% to 37% over the last 10 years. And it's actually even more noticeable if you look at that specifically for people 55 years old and younger. You'll find that now in 2011 or 2012, about half of the entire population under 55 has access to mobile internet. So this isn't just, oh, a couple of people own smartphones anymore. This is really getting to the point where it's quite widespread. And this is quite a serious trend to be thinking about as an organization. Similarly, here's another way of looking at it in terms of how many people have those feature phones. As I said, that's the more simple phone compared to a smartphone, which is effectively, you know, a computer in your hand that also make phone calls. Really, smartphones are becoming much more popular, and they're really gaining over feature phones. So smartphone adoption is going up, feature phones are going down. Again, this is in North America, so if you are working with clients or constituents or whatnot in the developing world, you'll find that the trend is much different. There's a very widespread use of mobile, even more so than here, but it's more on the feature phone side. So your mobile strategy will look very different if you're working outside of North America, but in North America, this is clearly the trend is towards smartphones. So I think the question to ask is always, what about you, right? There's a clear trend in society. You know, I've shown you a couple of graphs that illustrate that, but there's plenty more where that came from if that's of interest. So there is a clear trend towards adoption of mobile and use of mobile as a way to navigate the internet, but it always comes back to what about you? What about your visitors? Are they mobile? So a good way to find this out is if you have Google Analytics or another program on your site, you would want to check that and find out how many of the visits to your site are on a mobile device. For us, I checked, and it's about 3.85% of our visits are mobile, so it's pretty low at this point. But for some people may find that who find that their visits are more like in the 5 to 10% range, or even higher, then a mobile website optimized website will be something that you want to consider quite seriously. So just a few examples of reasons why mobile visitors might be on your site. Because we think, why would someone choose to go on a website on a mobile device when they could go on their desktop and have a much better experience? So a few things that I thought of. First of all, maybe someone's walking down the street, they see an ad or a poster for an event that you're holding or you're fundraising or whatnot. They want to find out more about you. They want to look you up right away. They just grab their phone and they look you up. Another reason could be that they came from social media or email. So these are things that people are much more likely to do on their mobile device. So maybe whether it's they're on the bus or on the go, or for whatever reason they're using their tablet or their smartphone to maybe check their Facebook, browse their Twitter, read their email, and they see a link that goes to your website. They click on that, and then they'll be on a mobile device on your website. If you use QR codes a lot, you're pretty much guaranteed to get people on mobile because that's the only way to use them. Or maybe you're just walking around and need to find contact info. Maybe someone's coming to your food bank, or they're coming to your library, or wherever it is that you are. They just need to look you up. Or maybe they just happen to be on mobile. I find for myself, maybe it sounds silly, but some of the time I'm in one room, my laptop's in the next room. I'm not going to go walk over and get it, but if I want to browse the internet, I'll just pull out my smartphone and do that. So there's any number of reasons why people could have got to your site. So just a quick story. I want to say that it's not that you have to have a mobile optimized website, but the trend certainly is going there. And this is an example of when I actually, about a year ago, I chose to make a donation online via my mobile because, again, I didn't have my computer at the time. And the website was not mobile optimized, so it was quite a frustrating experience to try to use the form, try to type in my information to make that donation. It was a pretty small amount, so I ended up doing it. However, I think it's important to know that people are out there, especially young people. If you catch them in that moment where they want to make a donation and they go to your website, you just want to make things as easy for them as possible, right? So in the same way that you make an effort to make a good website, to make a smooth donation process online, now we're starting to need to think about the same situation on mobile. So what it always comes back to, of course, is who's your audience, how are they coming to your site, how are they getting there, and ultimately, what are their goals, what is it that they're looking for, what is it that they're trying to do, how do they use your website, which will be different for each one of you, and what are your goals. So what are you trying to accomplish with your website? Is mobile a big part of that? I think at the end of the day, if your website is already maybe difficult to use and behind, then you may want to focus more on just getting it sorted out before you think about the mobile aspect of it. Or you may want to say, mobile is a priority for us, so we're going to rethink our website and integrate the mobile piece in. Or for others of you, you may be feeling good about your website, so thinking about mobile is a great next step. So just a brief stop here. Do we have any questions about anything I've said before we jump into the nuts and bolts of how this mobile website thing actually works? Let me just check for questions. Feel free to put them in the chat box if you have any. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment, so I'm just going to keep on rolling to chat about mobile websites. So remember at the beginning of the presentation I showed you 3 examples of different websites. One of them I said had a mobile website, and one of them was done with responsive design, and one of them had no mobile website at all. So of course we're not going to talk about that, but I'm going to talk about 3 main approaches. So 2 of them that I just mentioned, that number 2 is a mobile website, number 3 is responsive design. But we're going to start off with an even simpler approach, which is mobile optimized content. We're going to go through each one, look at some examples, and look at some different ways to approach that. So the big idea behind mobile optimized content is that maybe you don't feel ready to actually create a mobile site or make your entire website friendly on a mobile device. However, there's still something to be said for having certain pieces of content that are optimized for mobile. So this is just an easier way to get started, a nice way to dip your toe in the water, experiment, see if this is a worthwhile path for you to be going down, see if this is something that is important to your constituents. So basically you can have specific content or pages of your website or forms on your website that are mobile optimized. And some examples could be your donation form. You could have a mobile donation form. If you do any advocacy, you could have a petition or an advocacy action such as an email to a member of parliament that, again, that form is optimized for a mobile device. Or you could have certain pieces of content such as maybe one blog post or one information page or whatnot. The other thing to note is that some of your content is mobile optimized by default, so your phone or your tablet will be helping people out with some things such as a YouTube video. If you have a video on YouTube and it's on your site and someone goes to play it on their phone, it's already going to pop up in the YouTube app, at least on an iPhone, and play really nicely. So it will give them that full screen view. So the good news is, especially if you don't own a smartphone, you may not realize that some things are essentially mobile optimized by default. So why would this mobile optimized content be useful? Well, it would be really useful if you knew you were sending people from a mobile device. So again, if you were using a QR code and you wanted to send someone to a page of information, you would want that page to be something that looked good on a mobile device. Another example would be if you had a mobile optimized version of your email, so your email was adapted to either look good on a desktop or look good on mobile. In the mobile optimized version of your email, you could link people to a mobile optimized donation form instead of your main email optimized for desktop, which links people to your desktop donations form. So those are some ways that you could make use of this, just having that one simple piece of content, but it would probably make your conversion rates much higher. So this is an example of a donations form online that is optimized for mobile, and you can see that because the fields are really large, they're nicely spaced out, they're very easy to use and to type into, and it's just very simple and clean. And actually, I did find online some sample code for a mobile-friendly donations form, so if this is something you're considering, that may be a good place to get started. So say you want to go beyond that, and you're really looking to have your whole website be friendly for mobile. The first of your two main options is the option to build a mobile website. So the idea here is that you have your main site, that it looks good on the desktop, and then you have a separate site, your mobile website, which is optimized for mobile. So it looks good on a mobile device, which is a smartphone or a tablet. So this your mobile website could contain pretty much all of the content on your website, or you may choose to only include certain pieces of content, such as maybe just your blog. And often you'll see when you're on mobile websites that there will be a link at the bottom that will say, go back to full site. So if people don't really find what they're looking for on your mobile site, or they don't like it for whatever reason, they can always click on that link and then be back where they started with your full site on their little screen, and then pinch and zoom in whatever is needed to find out what they want. So as I said, this could be, you really could try to make your mobile website cover all the functionality of your desktop website, or you could take a different approach. So one idea would be, which is I see pretty commonly with nonprofits, it could be a mini site. So basically you put in some key info like that, about us, donate, sign up, here's our blog, or here's some key other actions we want you to take, like on the nature.org site, they had that find a preserve. That was an important thing for them to highlight to their mobile users. So, and then all the rest of the stuff they had wasn't accessible on the mobile site. So that was a nice way to keep it simple and streamlined for mobile users. Another approach to mobile websites is that if maybe you don't want to touch your main website yet, but you are running a specific campaign, or you're hosting a conference and you want to create a website that's for that event, you may want to make that specific campaign or event website mobile friendly, and then that would be more manageable in making your full site. So those are some different approaches. So let's look at some examples. These are all examples of organizations that have made their main website mobile friendly in different ways. So again, if we can look back at nature.org, which is this first one here on the left. And as I said, what they've done is this is a mini site. So they've got their About Us, they've got some key links, some key actions to take, and their blog is all on this mini site, but it doesn't have all of the stuff that you saw on their desktop website. An example of a website that only has their blog is 350.org. If you look at their mobile version, they basically have this very simple, almost like an RSS feed of just the blogs that they have. So they don't have any of their information, any of the About Us. If you want to do that, you have to go back to their full site. An example of an organization that has pretty much put all of the information from their desktop website onto their mobile website, yet done it in a mobile-friendly way, is the American Cancer Society. So it's this one on the right, and if you go to their website on a mobile device, you'll see that they have a nice picture at the front. They have a whole list of links that are all the same links that they have, or sorry, like navigation bar that they have on their current on their desktop site. And you can even see in the top My ACS, you can even log in here to their website if you have a login. So it's quite comprehensive what they managed to do, but it's all rearranged in a very mobile-friendly way. So how does one go about building one of these things is always a question. So there's a lot of different things you'll read online, but I've really broken it down into three main approaches here. So the first approach is to use what I'm calling a mobile website service. So this is something online that says, you know, type in your website address, and we will create a mobile website for you. It will just take a few minutes, and then you can make some customizations, and then poof, you'll have a mobile website. So basically what's going on here is these services have designed a content management system specifically for mobile websites. So when I say content management system examples would be WordPress, Joomla, Weebly, Drupal. These are all content management systems that are usually used for desktop websites. But these services have content management systems specifically for mobile websites. So that means that you can modify your mobile website, customize, okay, do we want to have an About Us page? Do we want to have our blog? Do we want to have a Contact Us page? And make sure, you know, it will allow you to create those pages in a really easy and user-friendly way. A key thing with these services from what I've seen is that for pretty much all of them, they use your main website as a starting point. So you're not building something from scratch, which is really nice. You're using your main website and you're basically stripping it down to be a mobile site. And as I said, often they will sort of do some default stuff for you to help you get started. But if you do want something more advanced with their service, they often offer the option to have an expert to help you build your mobile website. Typically how you pay for these is that there will be a small monthly charge. So you'll pay maybe $8 to $40 a month, maybe more depending on what you're getting, and you have to pay that ongoing cost, but as long as you do, you can use their service and offer a mobile site for your visitors. And at the bottom, there's a whole list of examples of services that do that. They're quite numerous. So if you're interested in this, I would suggest having a look at some of those and comparing them with each other to see which one might be the best fit for you. So the advantages of this is that it's pretty easy to do. You've got the service helping you out. You do have to pay for it on a monthly basis, but it's pretty quickly to get up and running. Pretty quick to get up and running. Another way to make a mobile website is that if you were using a content management system like WordPress or some others, some of them will have themes and plugins that are already optimized for mobile. So it'll make it easy for you to build a mobile website that is linked to your current website. So these are some examples that are all for WordPress. So if you do have a WordPress site, you could there's a plugin called the WordPress Mobile Pack, and what that will allow you to do is it'll make it really easy to set up that mobile site, to do the check of are they on a mobile device, and if so, show the mobile site. Some of the first two are examples of mobile themes. So when you have your mobile site, you need a theme that looks good on mobile, not on the desktop, and those are some ones that are already built for WordPress. There are likely similar things for other content management systems as well. So as I said, if you're on a content management system that has these options, that can be one way to go to quickly get yourself a mobile site. The third option with a mobile website is, of course, always to build it yourself. So I'm guessing, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing with the American Cancer Society, they may have chosen to build it themselves. So because that's the way to get it the most customized, the most the most precise in terms of what you want, and it's especially needed if you do want something really advanced or unusual. However, it's not really the approach that most people would want to take because it would be a fair amount of investment. So you'd really want to be sure that your needs are very unusual. In most cases, you'll want to take a different approach, either use the existing services or use responsive design, which is what we're going to look at next. So, as promised, responsive design. So like I showed you at the beginning, the big idea here is that you've got one site. So instead of before we talked about having two sites, a desktop site and a mobile site. With responsive design, you have one site that looks good on all different sizes of devices. And basically what's happening in the background from a technical perspective is that your website is saying, okay, what is the size of device that I'm on? And then it's resizing itself appropriately and rearranging things appropriately. Maybe it's even hiding certain elements, so it's saying, oh, we won't show this image if we're on a mobile device, and it will hide that. Or maybe it will just rearrange things. So it's one website, you're maintaining things in one place, and it looks good on all devices. So some examples of this. So I showed you at the beginning the Give Confidently site, and I showed you how that resizes. I'll show you again now. This is an example to get a little more technical. When they were developing this site, they used, they built this little simple page for themselves that basically shows them the exact same site in a bunch of different views, and it's all embedded into this one window. So you can see here they've said for themselves, okay, what do we think are the most common sizes of devices that people are going to be used? Here you can see this first one is pretty similar to a smartphone. The second one is a small tablet. I think that's more like a playbook. And then we've got this one, which is more like a larger tablet size. And then on the right, we have the full desktop size. So they basically said for themselves, these are the sizes we want to support. And they set up this page so that they can always be checking in their development, well, how does our website look different on all these different devices? Sizes. There's a couple other examples here. I'll just show you fundraise.com because they also have a very responsive site. So you'll see here that they have lots of elements on their desktop site. They've got some big image. They've got a nice little sign-up form which turns into this checklist. And they've got some stuff at the bottom. So a few links here, some places they've been featured, some featured fundraisers, who's using us. So they've got all this stuff that builds credibility on the desktop version of their site. And again, if I start to shrink it, we can see, I'll just get one size smaller. So if I get to this size, basically what's happening is nothing's changed except the image has started to shrink to accommodate the smaller screen size. So as I get smaller, the image shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until eventually the image is rearranged to go below the sign-up form, and that's what it looks like on a mobile. So again, another example of how you can be creative about rearranging stuff on your desktop site to look good on a mobile device. So how does one accomplish this? So if you don't have any techie designers at hand, or you don't want to start from scratch, a good way to approach responsive design is to use a responsive theme. So it's basically like normally to build your website in the past you would just get a theme and it would look good on your desktop and you would customize it. So now you can actually get themes that not only look good on your desktop but have this responsiveness built in. So they're made to be responsive. They're made to make it easy to resize for different devices. And one example of a company that does this is utheme.com. I will say this is a newer field, so you'll see less options for responsive design than for the mobile websites. However, it's also a really growing field because people are really recognizing that responsive design can be very valuable and it's very popular with a lot of website developers. So you're going to be seeing a lot of growth in this area. So keep your eye out for there are other options coming out. The other option is, again, of course, to do it yourself. This is what with the Give Confidently site, this is what they did, is they did it themselves. But fortunately, again, you don't have to start from scratch, as there's a bunch of templates and frameworks available to just put in those little pieces of code in the CSS, which is the styling for the website, that will make it responsive. So if that's something you want to look into, ideally you'll have a designer who has some experience with responsive design or the willingness to learn. And they will be able to help you out to make your site responsive. So let's briefly talk about why you'd want to use a mobile website versus responsive design. So really the main trade-off here is, again, this 2 websites with mobile website versus 1 website with responsive design. Now, if you have a mobile website, you can link it in some ways to your main website. So for example, if you have a blog on your mobile website, it can pull the blog automatically from your main site. So it will update itself in some ways. However, say you need to update your About Us page, you'll need to go do that on your main website and then go do that on your mobile website. So it adds a little bit of work in terms of maintainability. However, some pluses of having a mobile website is that you really can simplify things. It's much easier to just create a more simple, streamlined site if that's what you want to do. You want to take a lot of clutter off for your mobile site. That's a good way to do it, which can be easier to digest. And you may get more control over what you can do with your mobile site because you only have to focus on your mobile site. Whereas with responsive design, you always have to ask what looks good at all sizes. And if you have a desktop site right now and you want a really quick and easy fix for your mobile website, building a separate mobile website with one of those services can be a really quick way to go. And this may be not necessarily the way you want to go long term, but it's just a really quick way to get started. I think responsive design for most organizations will find is a better bet in the long run because it really gives you the big advantage of having only one website and theme to maintain, one place to update content, etc. It is possible to build into an existing site, but I have also a lot of the examples where I've seen it have been done when people are building a new website. So if you are thinking about redesigning your website, I strongly consider thinking about responsive design right from the beginning. Don't wait until the end to tack it on. It's not a lot of extra work if you're building a new website to make it responsive as well, so it's worth really thinking about from the start. So I noticed there's a couple of questions coming in, so I'm just going to pause and answer those, and then we'll just chat about a few, really briefly, about a few website design tips for mobiles. Feel free to just throw them in the box right now. So one clarification, someone says, how does accessing mobile websites work? Basically, how do you get there? So basically what happens with both a responsive site and with a mobile site is that when the website loads, there's a little piece of code that runs in the background that says, what device am I on, what size is it? And basically processes that content, and then in the case of a mobile website, it says, okay, we're going to redirect you to the mobile website instead. So if you typed in nature.org, it will redirect you to m.nature.org. On a responsive design, what won't be happening, it won't be a redirect, but it will be a rearranging, maybe using a different style sheet or using different components of the style sheet. So it's that little media, it's called a media query that's happening in the CSS, and that's what determines whether you go to the mobile website or not. So we have some also great suggestions that I wanted to share. So one of our visitors pointed out that there are some other responsive theme places that they have liked. So some examples they shared are woothemes.com, studiopress.com, and others. These are mostly just coming out in the last year or so. And maybe Lori can share some of those in the chat window. Woothemes.com and studiopress.com. So other great examples of responsive sites. Okay, she did. Thank you, Lori. Just taking a second to read the questions here. Okay, so one of the questions just said, Joomla 3 just came out and it's supposed to be mobile friendly. Among other things, they have a responsive design admin interface. Do you anticipate that a migration to Joomla 3 will make it easier for us to convert our site to mobile? So I'm not personally an expert on using Joomla. However, from the sound of what you've said, if they have a responsive design admin interface, my guess is that they've set it up to make it really easy to make your site responsive. As I said, this really is the way that things are going, so if you can choose the responsive option, I think it's better. So what it sounds like from what you've said about Joomla 3 is that it set it up really nicely to make your site responsive, so you won't have to worry about making that separate mobile website and maintaining it. And maybe you won't even have to get a separate theme. I don't know how nicely it's designed, but it will make it really easy to build. So if you are in Joomla and you want your site to be responsive, it sounds like Joomla 3 will be an awesome option for helping you to do that with less technical skill needed. Okay, so there's a couple of other questions, but I might need to come back to them afterwards or answer them at the end of the webinar. I'm just going to share a couple of other things, and then, as I said, then we'll answer a few more questions. So keep putting your questions in, and some of them, if we don't know them, we'll follow up afterwards. So a few tips if you are thinking about designing for mobile. There's some links here, so if you view it in SlideShare after the presentation's over, you can click on those links and find out more. So some things to keep in mind. First one is to prioritize content, which means as little content as possible. Now, this is something that's good on all websites, and one of the really cool things, actually, one of the really cool side effects of designing, especially designing a responsive site or any mobile-friendly site, is that it really forces you to prioritize what's most important. Really aggressive prioritization, because a mobile can only accommodate so much. And that actually not only benefits you in terms of having a good mobile website experience, but also it improves your website experience on your desktop website, right? Because the fact is, desktop or mobile, people don't read. People don't want to read a lot of text. We definitely see that every day with our website, and I'm sure you see that with yours. So going through the experience of developing a site for mobile will really force you to pare down your text, and if you can take those lessons that you learn and put them back into your desktop site as well, or of course if you have a responsive site, it will just benefit you naturally because it's the same site. That can be really good. So this is one example. The text that I have here is again coming back to that giveconfidently.za site. You can see how they went through an approach, well they called it put your text on a diet. So on the left is the text that they had in their initial wireframe, and on the right is the text that they actually have on their site. So you can see they relentlessly went through and asked themselves, is every single one of these words necessary? What can we eliminate to make this as succinct as possible? And how can we make this most relevant to, of course, to the visitor, to the site? And you'll also, they went through that same process, especially with their navigation bars. Again, what is it that people are looking for? How can we just use the fewest words to best articulate what's going on? A second tip would be to simplify user input. And again, this is something that can pretty much benefit you on every platform, but is pretty much mandatory on a mobile device. So on the left is actually an example of a sign-up form for our newsletter. And you see we took the liberty to put in a bunch of optional fields because we can, quite frankly. I mean, if people provide us with this extra information, it's very helpful to us. But the ones we really need the most just the 4 at the top. And maybe we could even simplify it more if we wanted to. So you can get away with that on a desktop site, but if someone saw that on a mobile device, they would just leave right away. Very few people would actually take the effort to fill that out. So on the right, you can see an example of a very simplified form, and they've really gone to the effort of making it as simple, as easy as possible to fill out. And again, because that was from a responsive site, that's from fundraise.com, it's the same form on their mobile and desktop platforms, so they're taking that improved mobile experience and also making it improved desktop experience. You need to make room for fingers on a mobile. So remember that people's fingers are fairly large, larger than you think. Apple tells us that a fingertip size is approximately 44 by 44 pixels, which I think is kind of fun that there's a fingertip size. So taking that into account, you need to make sure your buttons are big enough and that there's space in between your buttons, about a good amount of white space, so that it's usable. Now, the feedback I've got from some people that have built a responsive site, they said that, it's kind of weird at first when you look at your responsive site on a desktop, it looks like there's so much space in between things because you need it in the mobile version. However, I think once you get used to it, you find it just has a cleaner, nicer look, which again benefits you all around. Remember that if you're developing any kind of site for mobile, remember to check on a lot of different devices. So again, what the 4Cs did when they were developing, their tip is that they basically had everyone in the organization and all their friends and family they could think of bring in all their devices. And so they had as many different devices as possible. So not just maybe an iPhone and an iPad, but they had Androids, they had the Windows mobile phone, they had Blackberries of different sizes, the Playbook, a Blackberry with a touchscreen and without a touchscreen. Basically, as many as they could crowdsource from the people that they knew. They used all of those to test, and they remembered to test with different orientations. So the more you can test on as many different devices as possible, the more confident you can be that your site will work the way you want it to work for everybody. And just one last quick reminder that some things just don't work on a mobile device. So Flash just doesn't work. So on what you see here is an example of a really cool website that has this really neat Flash experience that is very interactive. So it's a really neat thing to do on a website, but if you go to it on your mobile, all you get, especially on an iPhone that doesn't run Flash, is you get this nice little message. So you don't get to experience any of this Flash animation thing that they put together. So in their case, because this is only part of their site, that's okay. But for sites that are built entirely in Flash, it's something you want to watch out for because basically any Apple device user will not be able to access your site at all. So that can be quite frustrating. Also keep in mind, maybe you have, if you have links in your navigation where you're supposed to hover your mouse over the link and then a drop-down comes up. For example, I don't know for any of you smartphone users out there if you've ever tried hovering your finger over a mobile device and seeing if anything comes up. I have not had much success with that myself. So in that case, if you have those built into your site, those are design elements you want to think about avoiding. So even if you have no intention or no capacity to do anything regarding to mobile, at least try to avoid these things that will just make it very difficult for a mobile user to use. So have a couple more minutes left to go to ask some questions. But for those of you, if you need to run off right away, I just want to say thank you for joining us. This recording will be available online with the slides, and Lori shared the link with you, and we'll be also saying that in a follow-up email. And there'll be a survey popping up just after the webinar is over when you exit. And if you could just fill it out and take a couple of minutes to give us some quick feedback, that would be really appreciated. So let's put in your questions, and I'll see if I know the answers to any of them, and we can share. Thank you. Okay, just trying to go through some of the questions in order. The first question we'll look at is, what about optimizing your donations page? There's so much info a user needs to input to make a donation. What's the best way to simplify this? So I'm actually just going to look up right now. I told you about that cancer, the m.cancer.com, so I'm just going to look that one up right now and see what they have on their site. And my mobile phone is giving me some problems with that. Okay, never mind. I was going to do a fun demo and tell you what they said, but my smartphone is not behaving. So I think part of the key is that you're right, with a donations page you do need to get a lot of information, so it can be really tricky. Let's go back and look at what they had on their site. I mean, even then they could probably have reduced what they said, because they had things for the option of a middle initial, which maybe you could say, well, you know, maybe we can cut that out on a smartphone. I don't know. Certainly, as mobile payment options develop, the payment aspect may get easier, so people don't have to enter all their credit card information. But those are in pretty early stages yet, so yeah, there's not too much can be done with that. You're right, it still is a long form. I think the key is just making it a little bit easier to use, and you know, making it nicely spaced out, nice and easy to type into. Another tip that you can always use for forms that makes it easier on mobile is, whenever possible, you can provide a drop-down. So for example, if you had a field for province or state, if you're in the US, instead of having that as a blank open field, you can have that as a drop-down, and that's easier for a person on a mobile device to use, because they don't have to type things in. So whenever possible, you can use the drop-down options, or you know, like the pick button options or whatnot. I think the key is that, you know, sometimes with some of the other forms, you can do things like, you know, so maybe not so much with the donation, but some other forms you can do maybe 2 steps. So you can ask people to do an initial sign up, like maybe just put in your email, and then you can send them a follow-up email and get the rest of the information later. So in a case where maybe if it's like a newsletter sign up, or signing up to be a volunteer, or like at an event, or for some action, some advocacy action, you might be able to get away with that 2-stage type form. So following up with them later when they maybe are back at their desktop. Okay, just going through the questions that are here. Do you know if Dreamweaver has a help for optimizing a website to be responsive? I actually don't. I'm really sorry. I'm not familiar with using Dreamweaver. I haven't used it in quite a while, so I don't know how they've updated, but not that I know of. Next question, is Flickr mobile optimized? Maybe that's one that Lori can help me a bit and look up. I don't actually know off the top of my head, but it's another really good point that Jane brings up, is that think about the services that you're using. So for example, like social media services, are they mobile optimized? So certainly Facebook and Twitter are. Some of them are almost mobile based. So Instagram, I don't think even has a desktop version. It's only on your mobile. Certainly other things like Pinterest is mobile optimized, LinkedIn to some extent. So if you're sharing stuff on those services, you know, can people even get to those services on a mobile device is a great thing to think about. Most of them, the answer is usually yes, but if you're using some obscure one, maybe not. We had a good point from one of our, from another person in the audience, to mention that Flash sites are also bad on the web because Google can't read Flash, so it's bad for SEO. So just to summarize the point there is that if you do have a Flash site, it's just to be aware that it can be harder for Google to basically crawl the site and see maybe what some of the keywords are, and basically you know, have it optimized in its search results. I have seen Flash content management systems that claim to have good SEO. I don't quite know how they work. But I think at this point, what with Flash being not really good on a lot of mobile devices, it being worse for SEO, and also Flash is bad from an accessibility perspective. It's a lot harder for people to use if they have disabilities. I think Flash in general is a good thing to stay away from, especially if it's having your whole website in Flash can be bad for multiple reasons. So it might look pretty, but I would avoid that in most cases. Looking for a next question. So again, kind of another a sum up about the difference between responsive design and mobile sites. So one of our participants shared that, is this a good summary? Responsive design is a baseline, but if you can afford it, a mobile site might make your site even better if you have heavy mobile users or applications. So what I would say about that is that certainly I think it would be nice to have responsive design on basically every site. I think some people use mobile sites now to have a really simple site. And where I see mobile sites being most used in the future is in the case where you have really specialized things you want to do on a mobile site. So say you see this more in business, say you're maybe a car rental company and you have that forum for people to look up for cars and stuff. So it's almost like an application online. You may want to create a really different experience for your mobile users to really easily fill in that form and look up stuff and reserve a car. That experience might be quite different than the experience you want to create for your desktop users. So in that sense, having a separate mobile website or an app really will make a lot of sense for that kind of organization in the long run. So if there's something your nonprofit is doing that's pretty complex and involved and you really want to have a different experience for your mobile users, then that's something to think about. If your website is mostly an information website, with some interaction and community, but it's mostly a bunch of different pages, which is most of our websites at the moment, then I think, if you're starting off now and you really have the option to do things properly, responsive design is the way to go. You have a question, any recommendations for web creation software that is not online? I think in terms of website creation, I know Adobe has a couple of products that are desktop products. I think Dreamweaver is one, and I think they have another one, I'm blanking on it right now, that do allow you to create websites on your desktop and then kind of sync it with your online environment. I think often an online one can be a better way to go because it just makes it easier to edit it in more different situations, more people kind of access, etc. But the Adobe ones, and I'm sure there's some open source ones, might be something to look at if the online content management system isn't just working for you for some reason. A question, is responsive design also accessible design, as in would it help a website be more accessible for people using assistive technology? I don't know for sure, but I would think just off the top of my head, not necessarily, because it's not necessarily resolving the issues that people with assistive technology have. Maybe if they were using the mobile version, they might get something a little bit simpler, so maybe that would be a little bit easier to navigate if they had some way to go straight to the mobile version. I will admit it's not a topic I know a lot about, but it is a really interesting question of, if responsive design is helping our websites get better in general, is it also helping our mobile websites to be more, accessible in general? I don't know, but maybe I'll look into that a little more because I think it's a great point to bring up. Any more questions? Oh, we did just have someone else mention that WordPress.org does have an offline option, so for the person that was interested in offline ways of editing your web. It's a little bit techy to set up, so be warned about that, but if you do need offline and you want to use WordPress, check out that WordPress.org offline option. Okay, we've got another question. What's the difference between a mobile mini site and a mobile optimized content? So just again to reframe, the way I was explaining it, to me, a mobile optimized content is just 1 or 2 pages. It's not really, like, it might not even be something you link people directly to. So, sorry, in the sense of it might not be visible on your website. So let me step back and give an example. So With your mobile site, somebody goes, they're on their smartphone, they navigate to your website detects that they're on a smartphone, and they redirect that person to your mobile website, and maybe it's a mini site. To me, mobile optimized content is something, if you were just browsing on the website naturally, you wouldn't find it. If I went to the website on a smartphone, I wouldn't necessarily see it. I would just get the main site shrunk down to fit my phone. However, as I said, if I clicked through that specific link, I clicked on that, I went through that QR code, I would get redirected specifically to that page. So it's just that one page. It's not a full website. And you only get to it if you know that exact link and you go to it for whatever way. Absolutely, you can share it on Twitter. Thanks. Sorry to the person who asked that question. Let me just check. I think we had one more question, and then if there's anything else, put it in. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up in a minute. Oh, so just some follow-up resources. Somebody asked about, are there more resources on responsive design and how to really use it. So I actually recommend, I don't have any in this presentation. However, if you go to, we actually did a recent event on different website topics. I'll show you, and we wrote a blog post on that, and our speaker shared some of his favorite resources on the topic of responsive websites. So if I just load that right now, basically if you go to blog on our website, and Lori will share the link for this as well, and you go to this redesign or realign, and if you scroll to the bottom, you'll find some really good curation of 4 top resources on responsive design right here. So some good, including some ebooks and stuff like that, that are a good place to start off, and there's a range of other good resources. Even if you just do a Google search, there's some great stuff on responsive design and how to do it. And if you want to chat with us after, we're at, it's Tierney, at TierneyS and at TechSoupCanada.ca. Sorry, at TechSoup Canada, which is right here on the screen right now. So thank you very much for joining us. If you had any questions we didn't get to, I'm sorry about that. They just flew through the question stream so quickly. Feel free to email us after or tweet to us is probably the best way to get in touch. And let us know your question. And thank you so much for joining. Have a lovely afternoon.